there are hundreds upon thousands of shows and seasons out there. Some better than others, and some that seem better than others. But which ones are they? Let's find out. Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus Commentary, where today we are looking at the best or the most overrated shows of all time. So I have got 5 on here. I don't think I did 5 last time, but I think I'm doing 5 this time. All of these I have actually watched, and this is also based off general consensus. So a lot of this, while this is it's both personal and overrated in general. So let's get into it. So start this all off, we will go down the comedy aspect again, and we'll go with Seinfeld. Seinfeld, for me, right. I will say this, the humor is very era specific, and nowadays it just doesn't hit hard. It's just useless, because the show is essentially about nothing, which made the concept harder to grasp for some people, especially those who are watching it today. Its iconic popularity might be a product of its time, rather than truly timeless comedy, but the episodes also lacked conclusions, which made it harder to follow over time. Now, I got up to season 4 of this. I just got so lost in what was going on, because with Friends, there was some rom-com, there was comedy, there was something going on, there was something to do with the seasons, there was always something to lead up to, but Seinfeld never had anything like that, so it was just overall confusing. The lack of conclusions made it really hard to follow, as I said, but the comedy was also a bit stale. There was things that were funny, but there was things that the background audiences were laughing at, but I was sitting there without understanding. At the time, it was one of the highest rated, but now it is one of the most overrated shows. Now, secondly, we are going to go with a different option, and it's a different genre. I don't really know what genre it is. I'll go with like mystery thriller type thing. But Westworld was great. But over time, it became so complicated and unnecessarily complicated and confusing that it lost its appeal. By the last couple seasons, no one gave a shit about this show. And it's so true as well. The viewership went down quite drastically. It's one of the shows that I've had the least, has had the biggest dips in viewership ever. It felt like the show was more interested in being smart than telling a good story. That was closer to the end. It was interesting the first 2 seasons, and then they were trying to add everything together into like one big ball. And they were like, oh, this is actually what's going on. This is actually what's going on as well. But it was just, they were trying to be smart with it, but instead of actually telling the good story. It also had too many philosophical themes. Now, that depends on the person, because it is confusing, not just for me, but for many people, because I like philosophy. However, philosophy is the most mind-boggling subject known to mankind out there. But Westworld, it had a good concept, but poorly executed closer to the end. Now, Parks and Recreation is another comedy, but it's more modern, and that's why I'm contrasting between Seinfeld and Parks and Rec. While it possesses quirky humor, it is a very cheap rip-off of The Office. I completely agree. I love The Office. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's one of my top 5 for sure. But Parks and Recreation was such a clear, it's a clear rip-off. It had such a slow start, which made it so hard to stick to it. That is another thing that Seinfeld failed to do. And a lot of people, fun fact, never really make it past the first season. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And all of their characters are just over-exaggerated, and it just comes off as really cringy nowadays, more than funny. Now, when you mix funny and cringe, that can be a bit of a problem, especially with a TV comedy show. If you're mixing cringe and funny, you're not on a good trajectory in that sense anyway. The idea around the whole thing was very Office-like, but I was still willing to give it a go, but nothing will ever beat The Office, whether it's the US or the UK version. But Parks and Recreation was just it was just so meh. I would say, I know this is going to be a bit harsh, but Parks and Recreation, the most comedic aspect of it was the bloopers. Pow. Now, next on our list, in the penultimate of the load, is Lost. And boy, was I lost in this plot. I'm so sorry, folks. Each episode presented a new story and a new potential storyline that could have gone for a long time, I will say that much. And while it did, they were ultimately not a satisfying answer to the whole understanding of these whole stories. Like, we got so much build up, and then we actually learned the answer. We're like, Yeah. They just kept on adding mystery upon mystery and upon mystery, and then you resolved a core like story apart the whole thing. Now I'm all for that. That's why I think I really like detective shows by Harlan Coben, because everything comes full circle. However, this got really confusing because it was the same thing that another show did that I'm gonna get onto later, is that they had, say, 22 episodes one season, and then they would revert to stuff from the beginning of the episode. Now, these were, again, weekly specials, so you would have 22 episodes of 22 weeks where you would not remember what happened at the very start. I mean, as much as I made the joke at the very beginning saying that I was lost in this storyline, I'm not the only one, and it's quite an obvious joke. A satisfying ending is always good for a mystery show, and then you can always start fresh with the next season. I think Lost could have gone the distance. Now, last on our merry list is my favorite. Well, it is still my favorite, unfortunately, but it is The Flash. The most overrated show nowadays. When it came out, it was peak, but now it's so overrated. The earlier seasons between season 1 and 3 were great because of their stories and villains, but season 4 onwards suffered hard, and really, really hard. It was hit by a bus and then ran over by a wheel 3 times. The drop in quality was very noticeable, and almost immediately, once the writers started focusing more on the melodrama than the good superhero storytelling, people fucked off. I was young, I didn't know any better. And also, I can't really watch a show even if the thing declines, I have to watch the ending. There was also a very significant decline in CGI quality. You could say that one fucking again. And there was so many time travel inconsistencies towards the end, and the plot stopped really making sense. Season 5, I think, had somewhat of an understanding. Somewhat. Very slight. When Nora came in. And then she just started coming in more times, and I just didn't like it. Season 6 is where it went fully down, and how it lasted for another 3 was astonishing to me. However, I did do reviews on this very channel, so be sure to go and check them out when I was 2 years younger, and I definitely have changed from then. Now, out of the most overrated shows, which was your favourite, and which are the most overrated? But without further ado, everyone, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and comment what else you would like to see on this channel. But without further ado, I hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!
Yeah!